Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the stream. It's Saturday, and you know what that means. It's time for the weekend kickoff, our awesome strength and stamina focused bodyweight class. I'm not yet at full 100% energy for that intro again, but I'm getting there. It's one of those really odd things where you're like, how enthusiastic do I actually feel about doing this intro, given everything else that's happening in the world? But you know what? I am still very enthusiastic about teaching this class, and I think that's what I need to remind myself, that, yeah, the world may be fucky right now, but we are still here for some awesome exercise, and that's a really important thing. So that's what I'm going to keep telling myself. Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful gray day here, because I think it's going to snow at some point today. Not quite sure when, but I'm very excited for whenever it does happen. Oh, soon. Yeah. Should start snowing while I'm teaching, which is exciting. I do love a good wintertime snow. So, yeah, it's cold outside, which is also very nice. You know, I feel like I've talked about this before, but whenever we have like days that get up to, 60 degrees or low 60s, and people are like, oh, it's such a beautiful day, and I'm like, it's winter, it's not supposed to be this warm unless you live in like Hawaii, and I assuredly don't anymore. So it always makes me happy when we have winter days that feel like winter days, which the last week has been pretty good. It's been pretty chilly the whole time. And I feel like I just notice it a lot more now. I think because the climate is gonna, man, my lifetime's gonna be a fascinating one. Oh my goodness. But for today, I will enjoy this beautiful wintry feeling day. And yeah, we've been talking a lot about building out energy and building out sort of grounding rituals for ourselves. And that's definitely one of the things that I'm working on this year, particularly because there are so many things that need to be addressed, and there's so much work that needs to be done clearly in a lot of different realms, both in my business and in my activism work, and making sure that I'm starting from a really grounded place is going to be super important. And I've struggled with anxiety and depression for much of my adult life, and it can be really easy for those things to sort of throw off an entire day. It's not like creating a morning ritual cures you, because that's not how this works. But it can help, just like exercise doesn't cure you, but it can help. And I've definitely been feeling that help and that improvement over the last week, which is really wonderful. So yeah, there will probably be some sort of rest day ramblings, Instagram story fun at some point, just taking you through like what my mornings look like, and what I've sort of pulled together for myself in terms of grounding ritual. So yeah, things that I'm thinking about, the ways that we keep ourselves grounded, the ways that we remind ourselves that despite everything else that we may feel like we lack, there are still plenty of things that we do have. I feel like last year, for a variety of reasons, I was very focused on things that I lacked or lost. And that is totally understandable. I feel like a lot of us were, all things considered. But I would like to move away from that mindset this year. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Remembering that progress is never a straight line. That's a good thing to remind ourselves of. Always, always, always. Because if we assume that progress is just this linear path up a mountain, then we're going to get really demoralized when we have days that we just can't do the thing that we're trying to do, when we have days when we just cannot break through the mess in our heads. And those days are always going to happen, and they're going to suck. They're going to suck even more when you feel like you're in a more balanced place, because you're going to be like, well, haven't I figured this out already? Again, not how it works. But again, as we talked about a lot last night, it's not about being perfect at anything, because that's an unrealistic standard that we will never attain. But the better we can get at noticing the times when we're feeling off, the times when we're really struggling, and then trying to pull ourselves back from those times, that's where the improvement comes from. That's where the journey comes from. Not assuming that we have to be perfect at everything, and if we're not, then we've failed. But also not using our desire for perfection as an excuse to stop trying and stop fighting for things. Okay? You're going to fuck up a lot. And I think this is going to be really important to remind fellow white folks this year who are planning to move into a more active role in activism and in tearing down white supremacy and police brutality and so on and so forth. The list of things that we need to tear down is long. It's going to be real easy for y'all, and by y'all I mean me as well, to get demoralized by not being perfect at this work right away. There's no way to be perfect at it, okay? We live in a racist society, and because of our privilege have been allowed to ignore or minimize that fact for far too long. And we're going to fuck up, and there are going to be people who don't trust us because they've been burned before. And we're going to have to make right with that, you know? And what we don't get to do is stop trying. And that's really what it comes down to. As I get older, that's I think what it all comes down to, is not using, oh, I'm not perfect at this right off the bat, as an excuse to stop trying. And I've been on both sides of that coin, and it's not fun on either side, honestly. But yeah, it's not an excuse that we can use ever again. We have to keep trying. And we have to acknowledge that it's going to take us outside of our comfort zones. And we have to acknowledge that sometimes we're going to mess up. And we're going to feel really shitty about that. And feel your feelings. Experience and acknowledge your feelings. And then get back out there and keep trying. Because that's how we build. That's how we build a better world, is by continuing to try. We do not build a better world by going, well, I attempted this, super briefly, and I didn't feel good at it right away, so I'm just going to come over here and, cover my eyes and close my ears and hope that everything gets better. Nope, we don't get to do that anymore in any part of our lives. But this morning we're focusing on activism and on dismantling white supremacy. We're going to be talking about this a lot, my friends. This is going to be a common topic on here, because it is really important for us to be thinking about this actively and then translating those thoughts into actions actively. Okay? So, yeah. And it's my stream, and I get to talk about whatever's going on in my head. And right now, this is what's going on in my head. It's probably going to be there for a while. So, but what we're going to do this morning is we are going to take care of our health, and we're going to have some fun, hang out together, do an awesome class. Try and work out the kinks. Oh, I've got a good class whipped up for you today too. I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm feeling a lot more energy than I did last night. Anyone who was in class last night knows that I got in and I was like, I'm feeling really run down, so I'm gonna take a step back. I'm still not feeling like, woo, I'm gonna dive into the deep end, but I am excited for this class, and it's gonna be intense. So, let's do our pre-class checklist, my friends. Let's make sure we've got our water. Oh yeah. It's always good to take a sip before we start and see how much water your body goes, oh, we need to drink that. Because that'll tell you a lot about how dehydrated you may or may not be. Like, I'm a little better hydrated this morning, so took a sip and that was fine. Last night, I sat down to teach class and was like, oh, I'll have a sip of my water, and then drank half the bottle. So take a sip right now, and if you do that, just go and refill it and pay attention to your hydration for the rest of the day. But we got our water, we've got our comfy clothes, we've got our mats or our mat-sized spaces on the floor, and if you use a fitness wearable, now's the time to turn it on to high-intensity interval training. Yeah. All right. Well, I'd say it's time to get started, my friends. I think it's time to get started with that warm-up. That's on, that's there, these are here. I've got everything. Everything's fine. It's all fine. Friends, it's fine. Okay, let me open up the timer. It is really disconcerting that my phone now knows my habits well enough to be like, oh, you usually open this app at this time. Let me provide you the icon for it, just in case you want to open it right now. I'm like, well, I mean, yes, but also, okay. On our mats, on our backs, 1 foot crossed over the opposite knee, and as soon as you hear that horn, we will begin with our hip rocks and bridges. Hiya! Ooh, yeah. Yeah, my knee's still feeling a little twingy. I'm not sure what that is. Sometimes it honestly is just that I've been sitting for extended periods of time in a weird position that's putting pressures that I'm not even noticing on my knee. So if you are, going about today's class and feeling twinginess in your knees and don't necessarily have a history of knee issues, then pay attention to how you sit. So, I definitely have a tendency to just sort of curl up in weird shapes in chairs, especially because like the chair that I spend the most time in is this big honking armchair, so you could just sort of flop yourself in any direction. But it does definitely mean that sometimes I'm putting pressure on my knee and I don't even notice it because, it's not that much. And then I go to get up and my knee's like, hey, we feel a little weird right now. So if you've been feeling that, then just pay closer attention today to how you're sitting and to how long you're sitting. So again, sitting all day, not great for our bodies. Standing all day, also not great for our bodies. So if you have a job where you have to be standing all day, and you're feeling knee twinges, then that could also be a sign, but a sign that maybe the surface that you're standing on is not a great surface for your joints. A lot of places have these god-awful concrete floors that just wreak havoc. So, if that's the case, maybe see if you can get a mat that will soften the surface that you're standing on a little bit. And try to, this is why I'm a huge proponent of going for walks, because just getting out and going for a walk, even if it's not a super long one, but that is a surefire way to be like, okay, I am moving all of these parts of my body that have been stiffening all day because I've been sitting or I've been standing and haven't been moving around. And now I get to move through the world and get some fresh air and give them a chance to stretch their legs, as it were. And walks are something that most of us can fit into our day. Not all of us. I'm never going to speak for all of us. You know, I recognize that, like, if you have multiple part-time jobs and you're just trying to get from one to the other, you may not have time to go out and take a nice leisurely stroll. And that's where activism comes in, because that's bullshit. But if you have the time, maybe over a lunch break, you know, maybe right after you get home from work, or maybe look at whether you're able to active commute to work, you know? So maybe you live close enough that you can actually walk to work if you are still having to leave the house to go to work. Obviously, I hope you're not. Obviously, I hope that you're able to work from home, but there's a large swath of the population who's not able to do that. You know, any of our friends in healthcare are having to get out there. Anybody working in grocery stores, in coffee shops, in restaurants, retail stores, if they're still open in your area, which they probably are, because our governments have apparently decided that they are just totally chill with people continuing to die in large swaths. God. Yeah, it's been a while since I've ranted on stream about how absolutely horrified I am by our pandemic response, but here we are. Even in places that seemed to have good responses initially, now it's like, oh, you know, our hospitals are only at 73% capacity, so we can totally ramp down a level of threat and, you know, let restaurants have, you know, 50% capacity instead of 25, and let people go inside more internal spaces. And I'm just like, yeah, that's because, you know, when I'm fighting a fire, I declare victory when I have it 25% contained, and then I go home for lunch, right? That's what I do. But that is apparently what we are doing here. And, you know, Colorado's not even bearing the same brunt that other areas are. Like, anyone who's in LA right now, please stay as safe as you can. Stay home as much as you can. Do not use one positive test as an excuse for dangerous behavior. You know, that's the thing that really pisses me off, is people who are like, oh yeah, you know, I got a test 3 days ago, so I'm totally fine to go, you know, to this party, or to go spend time with my aging parents. And it's like, okay, you got a test 3 days ago, but you clearly didn't quarantine until you got the results back, because you're here telling me about this, so that test is meaningless. That test tells you only whether you had a positive status 3 days ago. It doesn't tell you anything about what you are right now. And it's just mind-blowingly frustrating. It's like, come on. They aren't magic. These tests are not magic. They are not, they're not an excuse for you to just behave as if there isn't a pandemic. And but so many people are using them that way. So many people are going, oh yeah, it's fine, I took the test. Some people aren't even waiting for results. I have people, so my parents live in Hawaii, and there are people, including people that I know, who are complaining about, like, the fact that you have to have results in hand before you can get on a plane to Hawaii, which I won't go down the rabbit hole of why it's complete bullshit that the state of Hawaii has reopened to tourism, because that will just piss me off. But yeah, there are people who I know who have been complaining about that. And I'm like, what do you think the test is? Do you think that when you get the test, you are somehow magically shielded from COVID? You don't want to have results in hand, so you would rather be on a plane with somebody who has a definitively positive result, but didn't wait around to get the results before they got on a plane? Like, that's what you're telling me? You would rather that your grandchildren be allowed to get on a plane with people who don't have even that small amount of insight into their COVID status? Like, you should be telling your families to stay away. But apparently we are too selfish to do that. It just blows my mind. I'm like, I would like to see my parents again before 2022, people, and you are not making that more possible or more likely. You are instead making it more likely that I won't get to see them this year, and it will be a solid 2 years before I see them again. Like, yeah, it's remarkable. So, hey, I don't think that this is something that anybody who watches my stream has planned, but please don't go to Hawaii this year. You don't need that tropical vacation, and they have a terribly small medical system that will become overtaxed incredibly easily. And, you know, my parents and the parents of a lot of my friends live out there, and they're all getting older. And I would like them all to survive this. So, yeah, your vacation to the tropics can wait. All right, it can wait, all right? It absolutely can wait. So, it's hard. I know that I'm in many ways preaching to the choir here, but it is also still important to say these things and to say them out loud and to say them often, you know? When we get into that mode where we assume that we're preaching to the choir and we stop talking about things because we assume that we know what people's reactions are, what people's opinions are, and then we end up you know, wondering why we're having massive breaks in our opinions, in our values, in our moralities. And it's like, well, because you stopped talking about things. And so I was over here assuming that, you know, everybody wanted to take this super seriously so that we could minimize the people who end up getting impacted by it. And you were over here worrying about your vacation. You know, so even if you feel like you are preaching to the choir, it's still important to talk about things, to say them out loud, and not to just assume that everybody feels the same way that you do. Because that certainly doesn't do us any good in terms of learning and growing and teaching ourselves and others. So, yes, communication, a very, very important skill, and one that many of us struggle with for obvious reasons. We're not really taught effective communication skills, you know? Like, I never took a communication class in high school. I took like a speech class aimed at public speaking, which is cool, but it's a very different skill set from, you know, having conversations with people in my daily life, right? It's a very different skill set. And it doesn't really have a ton of overlap, you know, because there's a huge difference between talking at an audience and talking with an audience. And that's what at least my speech class was really focused on. And yeah, you know, and I feel like my school didn't have like debate club or anything like that, but you know, I know that exists, but I also feel like that's not necessarily a good way to teach communication skills either, because as far as I understand it, and recognizing that I get almost all of my understanding of debate classes from pop culture, so there may be a little bit of a gulf between what I believe and what is true. The impression that I get is that the focus is not really on convincing or communicating so much as the focus is on winning. And that is also not a great tool for communicating. If we're going into a conversation with an adversarial outlook and going, okay, how do I win this conversation? Then we are very likely to not actually be listening to what's being said to us, and are instead just focused on when can I make my next point that's really gonna blow them out of the water, that kind of thing, which is, again, not great for actually communicating with one another. So I think about that a lot, and we've talked about communication strategies before on this stream, and you know, a lot of it boils down to recognizing that you may be being as clear as you know how to be, and the other person may think that they are entirely clear on what you're trying to tell them, and you can both be both right and wrong at the same time. You know, you can be being very clear about what you want, but language is not a precise mechanism for conveying thoughts and opinions. And so the other person can have a completely correct interpretation of what you're saying, even though it's the wrong interpretation for what you were actually trying to convey. And we do not pay attention to that nearly enough. So it's a good thing to think about and pay attention to, because the number of times I've heard people say, and the number of times that I've said, like, I know I was being totally clear, but you know, we can never be 100% sure of that. We can never be 100% sure that we are being totally clear, because we know what we mean. That doesn't mean that we've conveyed it externally, and we could have used language that was much more open to interpretation than we intended it to be. And the other person may have tweaked their interpretation of what you were saying in order to fit what they knew. And before you know it, you're on two totally different pages. So again, this is going to be the theme of today. Trying to notice when it feels like you are on different pages and trying to pull back together. That's, you know, I've been with one of my partners for 8 years, and that's been a huge part of our learning process. Learning to be with anybody for 8 years is learning how to, not learning how to avoid every ridiculous argument, but learning how to identify when you are ships passing in terms of the conversation, and learning how to pull yourselves back to be present and to be truly listening to one another. And that just goes for any relationship, of any type. All right, my dears, we are going to do a pyramid. Oh my gosh. Yes. So we're going to have 10 minutes for it. We have 3 exercises. If you have not done a pyramid with me before, it goes like this. We have 3 exercises, and we don't have an interval timer for this. We just have a chunk of time that we will have to complete it. And what we are completing is we will do all 3 of the exercises 3 times through. The first time through, we will do 21 reps of each exercise. Second time through, we will do 15 reps. And the third time through, we will do 10 reps. All right, you can take breaks as long as you need between things. You can even pause in the middle of your reps if you need to, although that can often backfire as a strategy. But yeah, 21, 15, 10. You have to get to those rep counts, and you have a grand total of 10 minutes in which to do so. So plan accordingly. Our exercises, first one's going to be those high knee runs that we started doing a couple of weeks ago, or maybe 1 week ago. Time has no meaning. So we're jumping back and forth from foot to foot, lifting our knees up as high as we can. Okay, so it's a cousin to the Flaming Scarlet. So for this, because we're going so quickly, we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so both feet have to hit the floor before it's 1 rep. Okay. Second exercise is going to be mountain climbers. So here we are in our plank. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So the same thing, the same approach as with our high knee runs. And then the third exercise, full pike extensions. So starting from up here, balancing on that tailbone, extending arms and legs out, but keeping them off the ground. Got my core engaged, and then back up. That's 1, okay? So yeah, those are our exercises. High knee runs, mountain climbers, and full pike extensions. So everybody on your mats, get ready, get set, and you're off, okay? So you need to be able to count how many reps you're doing, which is going to be a lot easier for you than it is for me, because you don't have to talk the whole time. And like I said, you can break as long as you need to between things. And you can break in the middle of things if you really feel you need to. I recommend against it though, and here's why. Breaking in the middle of a set is never as relaxing as we think it's going to be. And then you have to get back up and start doing the sets all over again. And then it can feel even harder to get everything done because you stopped, you let your brain go, oh cool, we're done. And then you went, haha, just kidding. And your brain's like, well, what the fuck? I don't even know what to do anymore. So I want you to really try your damnedest to get all of your sets done in a row, and then take your break for as long as you need it, okay? And that is going to make this a lot easier in the long term. All right, I'm done with my 21s. And it's interesting. It can be really easy to worry that you're not going to get everything done in time. But, you know, getting through my 21s took me maybe 2 minutes, and I've got 10 minutes total. So, you know, keep breathing. You're going to get through the whole thing. You're probably going to have extra rest time, honestly, which is going to be super nice because you will get to just chill. And the nice thing about the exercises that we're doing today is that, in particular, the high knee runs and the mountain climbers are fast moving exercises. So we really blast through them a lot more quickly than we think we're going to. And so, you know, you're going along, you're like, okay, I need to go for speed because I only have 10 minutes. And then you're like, whoa, was that all the time it took? That felt super easy. So you may end up surprising yourself today. And I want you to keep an eye on that, on whether you're able to surprise yourself, on whether you're able to go, wow, that took a lot less time than I thought it would, and I probably could get this pyramid done in, 8 minutes instead of 10. That was our record when we were doing Rocktober, way back when. We got it down by the end of the month. We did our pyramid in 8 minutes, and it didn't even feel rushed. We still had time at the end to chill. So yeah, a lot of times we have more capacity for this than we think we do. The challenge comes in when we do multiple pyramids in one class, which I definitely did one time, and it was awesome. But it also most definitely, the second pyramid was a lot harder than the first one. The first one, I really felt like I just blasted through and I was feeling all cocky. And then we got to the second one and I was like, oh, I don't have the same degree of energy left that I did previously. And okay, this is gonna take me more of these 10 minutes than that first one did. But always remember, I'm speaking mostly from my own experience, but if things are taking you longer than they're taking me, that's fine. You've got 10 minutes and another 2 afterwards, because we have our official rest period at the end of this. So you can go into that to finish your reps. You just won't get as much of a rest before the next interval, okay? So that is absolutely an option, and a very good option. We're not in your living rooms judging you for going too slowly, and I know that feeling. It's one of the things, like, I love pyramids as a structure, but it can also be incredibly stressful to do them in class and to be like, to feel that you're behind other people and to, get to the end of class and go, well, I'm not done with all of my reps, but everybody else has finished, so do I keep going and make it clear that I'm so much slower than everyone else, or do I stop and not actually get the total number of reps? And that's such a frustrating way to feel in class. That's not how we should have to feel while we're exercising. You know, we are not here to compete against anybody. We're here to work out, to have a little fun, to, you know, work up a sweat, and to take care of ourselves and our bodies. So one of the reasons why I love doing pyramids on the stream is that nobody has to feel that pressure. I mean, I guess maybe me, but I can handle that. But you don't have to feel that pressure. Nobody's watching you. Nobody is in your living room. Nobody is judging you. All we want is for you to succeed. That's my only goal. And, you know, if you feel like you really need to cut a set short, you can do that without worrying about anybody noticing. And the only thing that I say about that is pay attention to how many reps you were able to do and see if you can get more of them done the next time we do a pyramid. Because again, we are working towards things. We are not supposed to be perfect right off the bat, and progress is not a linear proposition. It's not a straight line, okay? So, whew, oh yeah, I do love pyramids though. They are so fun. Every once in a while I forget about them. And then as I'm, you know, flipping through past class plans and going, I wonder what I want to do, I'll see that on one of my past plans and go, oh, okay, there we are. All right. You have 1 minute left, my friends, and then we have our 2-minute rest timer. So technically you have 3 minutes before we begin a different set of exercises. This is a good one to pay attention to the impact of different amounts of mid-exercise rest. You know, rest is just as important as a component of your workout as the actual movement is. You know, high intensity interval training, interval is a huge part of that. And that means that sometimes we are working out really, really hard and sometimes we are resting, okay? Pyramids give us an opportunity to play around with the length of that rest and to see how it impacts us. So again, you know, sometimes I've done pyramids and push-ups really intense for me in pyramids. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to take a break before I finish this set of 21. But then, 10 minutes are done. We are on our 2-minute rest. But then when I go back and try and finish them, it feels harder because I gave my brain the signal that it was done with that activity. And then I was like, just kidding. And so it is rarely as easy or as helpful as we think it will be. So play around with that. Pay attention to how your body feels, how it reacts after different amounts of rest in different places, etc., and just, again, learning more always. All right, next thing we are going to do is a guided Amrap set. So we're going to have 5 minutes. We're going to have 3 exercises plus our active rest exercise, cross jacks, and I'm going to be telling you when to switch from one thing to the next. All right, so our 3 exercises, our first one we're starting with is skips. So our nice, simple skipping in place on the mat. So lift one knee, opposite arm, hop, and switch, okay? Second exercise is going to be side-to-side superheroes. So this is our core exercise where we lie on our sides and lift our arms and our legs off the ground, then move over our backs so my core is really engaged, and up to the other side. And we just go back and forth and back and forth. If you have a mat with a little bit of height on it, consider moving that to the side, because if it's not wide enough, you're going to be kind of rolling off of it each time, and that gets really frustrating and gets in the way of doing the exercise, which is why I'm putting this in a guided set where I don't have to do it. And then third exercise is kick-throughs. I know you know how to do them because we do them every day. So, all right. So, and then cross jacks for our rest. Just chilling, okay? So everybody on your mats, and just start with the cross jacks, okay? Just want you to start nice active rest. We're not going for intensity. You should be able to fully control your breath and your heart rate here. And now I want you to go into skips for me. Give me some skips. Remember, we're not moving around all over the place on the mat. We're not trying to, you are just trying to stay in one place, okay? And this may not feel like a core exercise, but keeping your core engaged will help you to move all of these limbs through space without them trying to shoot off in unexpected directions. All right, now down for some side-to-side superheroes. Side-to-side superheroes for me. Remember, when you're up on your side, you do not have to be lying in a straight line, okay? That would make the balance almost impossible, especially because we're trying to get momentum going from side to side. So I usually will bend myself into sort of a U shape with my legs behind me when I come up onto one side. And that is totally fine, all right? It's not like the Jane Fondas. We're not going for a straight line here. And now, kick-throughs, please, kick-throughs. So we've done kick-throughs already today, but we can always use some reminders about our form. So remember, you don't need your arms and your feet super far together. In fact, you want them much closer together so that up on this arm, shoulder is as close to over the wrist as possible. And I can keep that standing leg, if you can see it, at a 90-degree angle, knee pointing up towards the ceiling, okay? All right, back to those skips for me. Back to those skips. Yeah. You know that I love skips because they are a cardio exercise, but they're also an easier one to manage. You can have a little fun with it because you feel the memory of being a kid and skipping around. So make sure that you're doing that. Yep, I kind of figured that that was exactly what was happening there. All right, and now I want you to come down for kick-throughs again. Kick-throughs, please. So remember, kick-throughs involve a lot of moving parts. And if you're still feeling like you're struggling with tying all of those parts together, then go slower and more deliberately from side to side. You do not have to get the speed in right away, all right? You can move slowly. All right, now back up to cross jacks. We haven't done cross jacks in a bit, so nice, relax, give ourselves an opportunity to bring that heart rate down, bring your breath back down, just sort of chill, but not for too long, because now side-to-side superheroes, side-to-side superheroes. Yeah, you're scrambling all over the place, which is a good talent to learn when we're doing perpetual motion style intervals. And what is one of the things that we need to focus on? Minimizing the amount of time that it takes to move from one exercise to the other. And sometimes that's really easy, and sometimes that involves shifting planes. All right, up for some skips, please. Up for some skips. Speaking of shifting planes, so you need to get used to visualizing in your head what you need to keep in mind as you're moving from one exercise to the other. It's even more complex here because you don't know what the next exercise is going to be. I'm making that determination for you. So you have to be ready for anything. You have to be ready to just start doing something that's still on your feet and super easy to get to, or you have to be ready to drop down to the floor and get into a totally different plane. All right, back to those kick-throughs. No, sorry, back to those cross jacks. I apologize. Cross jacks, cross jacks. That was my fault. Well, the good news is you've got 35 seconds left. So we do not have a ton of time left. I'm going to have you finish out with the kick throughs. So now down to kick throughs. All right. I want you to really push to keep going the whole time. Maybe try and add in a little bit more speed if you're feeling up for that. Maybe add in that little hop in the center rather than just stepping your feet down. You've got 10 seconds left. You can totally do this. The most important thing is to keep moving, checking in on that form, making sure your shoulders are stable, and done. Good job. Woo! Oh, good job, my friends. Yeah, that's an interesting point that I hadn't even thought about. The fact that, like, when we're doing these guided sets, there's a whole new side to moving as quickly as possible from one exercise to the other, which is that you don't know what the next exercise is going to be. At least when we're doing an actual perpetual motion interval, you can be like, okay, well, the next exercise is X, so I'm gonna figure out, you know, I can be in this variety of positions in my current exercise, and this is how I would get to the next exercise from any of those. On this one, you just have to know what the other exercises are and plan for all of those eventualities. So it's definitely a little more complex. It's definitely a little harder, and that is totally fine. We like to challenge ourselves. All right, now we are going to do a Tabata. Yeah, we are going to do a Tabata. 45 seconds of work, 15 seconds of rest. 3 exercises, 3 times through. So fairly standard. Our first exercise is going to be kneel to squats. So keeping our head the same distance from the ground, no matter where we are in the exercise, we start in a kneeling position. Take a flat back, and you can let your butt come backwards a little bit, and you'll see why, because now, keeping my head the same distance from the floor, first I bring one foot up, and then I push forward. Now I'm in this very low squat. Then I bring that first leg back down, and again. And then I switch what leg I start on, okay? But I'm going back and forth between the two. Second exercise is going to be our slow leg lower, our favorite core strengthening exercise. So legs pointing straight up at the ceiling, introducing a tilt into your pelvis so that your lower back is glued to the floor. Can't get my hand under there at all. And then slowly lowering your legs, stopping every 15 degrees, holding for 2 seconds, then lower and hold, lower and hold, lower and hold. And if your lower back is still glued to the floor, you can start to reverse. Or if your lower back comes up at any point, reset, start again. Third exercise is push-ups. And we have all of the modifications available to us: waves, half plank, half wave, from the knees, full plank. I do want to challenge you to do a harder version today if you feel up for it, okay? So if you feel like half plank, half wave would be a good, harder version to go to, try that out. Either way, you want to make sure that your shoulders are directly over your wrists and keeping those elbows in right by your sides the whole time, okay? Not letting them fan out. Alrighty, so here we go, my friends. We are gonna do a Tabata, and keeping in mind that the first sound that we hear on the timer does not mean go. This is our first time using the timer since warm-up. Wow, we don't usually get this far into class without the timer. Yes, so you'll hear there, that was the knock, 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 which for some reason gets kind of abbreviated on this timer and this timer only. But now we are off and away. So again, one of the reasons why I have the flat back position like this is because, again, one of the main components of this exercise is keeping my head the same distance from the ground the whole time, all right? And if I'm up here, then I come here, my head has come way higher than it previously was. So this just helps me to maintain that positioning the whole time, okay? And I'm just holding my hands in front of me. We're not doing anything particularly special there. You know, you can clasp them together, just have them in fists, palms together, whatever you want to do. All right, so you know how much I love this particular exercise because it is really good for assessing our core strength and for strengthening our cores, because we do not have the option to compensate with other muscle groups for this. As long as we've got the position correct, we've got our lower backs glued to the floor, we have to use our core muscles to lower and lift our legs. So if you've been struggling with your core strength, this is the exercise that I want you to do. Alrighty? Push-ups, that's right. I was like, I know I haven't finished the exercises, but I can't for the life of me remember what's next. Oh my. See, I really hate that for some reason, and it's only on this timer, the connection between my phone and my Bluetooth speaker is off just enough that you get hardly any of the knock, knock, knock sound. So I will try to point it out when it happens so that you don't miss it either, because I definitely missed it just then and then was not at all in position to begin the push-ups. So if that happened to you as well, I apologize. Knock, knock, knock. All right, so get ready, get set. We're going for round 2, starting back with those kneel to squats. And you want to make sure that your core is engaged. There are a lot of components of this exercise that are going to be tricky, particularly this super low squat. It's going to require a lot of openness and flexibility in your hips, okay? So keep that in mind. We are really going for keeping that squat position as low as possible, and that's how we get the head to stay the same distance from the floor the whole time. But it is hard, absolutely. This is a really intense exercise, particularly when we do it for a full 45 seconds. It definitely feels harder and harder. Alrighty, now for our second run of, what are we doing? Slow leg lowers. I hope y'all are paying better attention than I am, sorry. Oh my goodness. Yep, it's okay. It's okay. We are not always as much on our game as we might want to be. And isn't that the theme of today's class? We're not striving for perfection, and we're not beating ourselves up when we don't achieve perfection, because that is an unachievable target, all right? But we want to notice as quickly as we can when things are out of joint, out of alignment, and we want to do what we can to bring them back together. And that's the goal. That's the success. All right. Now for your second run of push-ups. Oh, so again, check in on that form. Check in on the version of push-ups that you're doing. And again, if you feel up for it, try to do a version that you consider harder. I use that phrasing deliberately because everybody has different views on what constitutes an easier or a harder push-up. And what I consider to be a harder push-up may be one that you find pretty easy, okay? So again, I'm not trying to tell you that this version is easier and this version is harder. I'm trying to tell you that you have an array of versions. Some of them may feel easier to you and some of them may feel harder. Try for one of the ones that feels harder. Recognizing that maybe you try it for a couple of reps and then go, I am not here yet, especially not for 45 seconds. Knock, knock, knock. Getting ready for our third and final time through these exercises. But yeah, you may give it a couple of goes and then go, I have to drop back into the version that I'm more used to because I really just do not feel like I am strong enough to maintain form on this harder version for the entirety of the timer. And that's fine. That is an important realization to be able to make. So pat yourself on the back for recognizing that, and then go back into the version that feels easier for you, okay? All right, back, knock, 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 getting ready for those slow leg lowers. So I keep my hands here the whole time so that I can test every once in a while, just see, all right, I still can't get my fingertips under my lower back, so I can feel pretty confident that it is still flat against the floor. Another way that you can do that, if you have a yoga strap or something similar, basically something shaped like a belt that is thick enough that you could pin it to the floor with your lower back, but thin enough that that's not going to push your positioning out of alignment. And you can lay down on that and then just pull on it every once in a while and confirm that you're not able to pull it out from under you. So that's, see, there we go. All right, we're back to our push-ups. But yeah, that is another really good way to test how your lower back is in the slow leg lowers. So if you have that, I recommend trying that approach, because sometimes keeping your arms in that fanned out position to try and test using your fingertips, sometimes that can feel really tricky on your shoulders, and using the strap may be easier. Oh, okay, man, friends, we have one more thing that we're gonna do. I bet you thought I'd forgotten. I bet you thought that you were getting out of it this week, but I am sorry to tell you that it's time for toe squats. You love it. Well, I love it. You'll grow to love them, I hope. Fingers crossed. They are a great exercise. They are a great exercise. Good for strengthening our quads, giving us a little balance practice, which is also a really good thing to work on. All right. So, you know the drill. No, that's fine. I'll leave that there. You know the drill. We take our feet hip width apart. We make sure that our backs are straight up and down. And then we begin squatting down And when I can't go any farther with my heels on the floor, I let them come off the floor. And I come all the way down here, and then I stand all the way back up. You know, the muscle groups that you want to make sure are engaged so that you're not falling over yourself. We'll talk about that more as we're going. But you know what I'm looking for? I want you to just do as many as you can get done in these 10 minutes. There will be one horn midway through, just to tell you you're midway through. You can take rests, but you have to make sure you're doing the same number of reps between each rest. So everybody on your mats, get ready, get set, and go. So what are we checking in on as we begin this? We are checking in before we do anything on making sure our core is engaged. Why? Because that helps with the balance. So if I am just free to sort of move my torso around wherever it wants to go, then it's very likely that by the time I get down here, my torso is misaligned even just a little bit. And that makes it so much harder on the feet and the ankles to maintain this balance. They're already, it's a small surface area that you're trying to balance on. And so if your torso is not perfectly controlled, no, not perfectly, if your torso is not controlled, then much more likely that you'll fall over, potentially injure yourself, all those things that we try to avoid. So before you go anywhere, engage your core, engage your glutes, and just be confident that your torso from your hips up is fully controlled by these stabilizing muscle groups, so that when we get down here, it's not a bunch of disparate parts moving wherever they want to go, and my ankles and the balls of my feet don't need to worry about losing control over this entire chunk that they're trying to control, and then standing back up. Similarly, controlling or engaging our core means that we are taking control of the movement back from gravity. Gravity is trying to help. Gravity is all excited because it's like, well, I want to push you down to the ground and you're trying to get down there, so why wouldn't I help you get there faster? But if you are sort of dropping down and feeling that little bounce when you get down to the bottom, that is really bad for your knees, okay? Really bad for your knees. You want to make sure that you are in control of the movement the whole time. Gravity does not get to play. So even if I'm going quickly and I'm doing really fast reps in a row, you can still see that I'm in control of the motion all the way down and all the way up. So I'm reducing the pressure being put on my knees and just helping to keep them a little bit safer, okay? So yeah, these are the things that we think about. And again, when it comes to rest, you can take rests, absolutely, but you need to make sure you're doing the same number of reps before each rest. So if you started out and you did 20 reps, and then you're like, all right, time to rest myself. Cool, now you're doing 20 reps each time. If you started out and you got to 50 reps, cool, now you're doing 50 reps each time. And when you're taking a rest, never hurts to stretch a little bit. So we've got our nice standing quad stretch that we can do, because obviously this is really intense on the quads. Get a little bit of calf stretching in. So imagining that I have a wall in front of me and I'm bringing one leg straight behind me and trying to drive that heel down to the floor so that I feel that stretch in my calf. And you may have to fiddle around a little bit to find that location. If you can get almost all the way down to the floor, but not quite, that's where applying pressure against a wall can help to get you a little bit more deeply into that stretch. And then when you change sides, just keep in mind that because we are not symmetrical creatures, you may feel more or less flexible on this side. You may have to go farther back or not as far back to get that stretch. And that's okay. We're not symmetrical. We wish that we were, but yeah, here our bodies are impacted over the entire course of our lives by the activities we do, by the injuries that we sustain, by, hey, we're halfway through, by which side is our dominant hand, you know, by where we live and the kind of terrain that we're moving on. All of this impacts what side is strong, what leg is stronger or weaker, what arm is stronger or weaker, what hip is more or less flexible. All of these experiences are leaving their marks, and they're not doing so evenly. So we do our best to even out impact as we're working out, and that's an important thing to do. But we still have to keep in mind that no matter how much we even out in exercise, there's still so much that has gone into our bodies that is going to reduce how symmetrical they feel in terms of strength, stamina, and flexibility. So for using myself as an example, I used to sprain my right ankle a lot when I was little, starting at age 9. That was the ankle that I would always sprain. And so I'm much tighter in my right hip because of the ways that I would modify my walking to account for this injury. And I'm much more flexible in my left hip because it never had to, well, once I think I sprained my left ankle instead of my right, but otherwise it never had this weird period of several weeks where it was feeling really tight because it was trying to protect the ankle as I moved on it, you know? So my right hip is just tighter and less flexible than my left hip. And that's, you know, again, that's an impact to my body that's going to last me probably for the rest of my life, that started when I was 9, which is just crazy. But one of the reasons why I'm so frustrated with the ways in which we introduce kids to fitness and sports and movement is because we are not teaching them how to pay attention to what their bodies need. And we're not teaching them to respect rest as a critical component of their lives. And we're not teaching them to identify when they're injured or on the cusp of an injury and say, okay, I need to stop moving. I need to take some rest, take a seat. We're teaching them that they're supposed to be able to muscle through all of this stuff. And we are leaving them with indelible impacts on their mobility and on their fitness that will last them the rest of their lives. I didn't know what I was doing at age 9, but I'm still feeling the impacts. So if you have a kid who is getting to that age where they're, you know, joining a dance company or joining a sports team, Just try as best as you can to counteract that messaging for them and to show them and to show their choreographers, their coaches, their teachers that it is in fact really important for them to rest and respect the needs of their bodies. All right, we've got 30 seconds left, my friends. So let's try to keep going for that whole time. You are so close to being done, keeping your core engaged, keeping control over the exercise. You have made it through another Saturday morning, and what a Saturday it is. Oh, and now it is time to rest. Except not rest. Now it's time to stretch. Woo! You know we're starting with that quad stretch. Because ending class with toe squats is intense. So right now, while our quads are really feeling things, let's care for them. Let's give them a sec to stretch. So for the leg that you're planning to stretch, I want to fold it so that the heel is back here on the outside of my hip, and then pull that heel in so it's as close to the hip as possible. My other leg, I've just sort of let the knee fall open like this. I'm not doing anything special with it. And we are going to very slowly move our torsos backwards only as far as we need to go to feel that stretch. I'm emphasizing slowly because our quads were just activated over and over again for 10 minutes. And now we want them to lengthen. So we want to move as slowly as possible so that our brain does not go, oh, are we using our quads again? Cool. Contract. Okay, so very slowly move backwards only as far as you need to feel that stretch. That may be here. Okay, if it's here, cool, stop here. Or maybe you keep moving down and you get to here on your elbows. Cool, stop here. Or maybe you can get all the way down to the floor. Cool, stop there because there's nowhere else for you to go. But take a second to settle into this position, okay? To relax as much as you can, to try and really feel that lengthening, that extension of the quad muscle, okay? And now we're going to take 4 deep breaths. And each time we inhale, I want you to visualize the oxygen going to wherever you are feeling the most activation in the muscle. And every time you exhale, I want you to try and settle a little more deeply into the stretch, okay? Here we go. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. And 4. All right. And now we are going to slowly and carefully, not necessarily gracefully, come back up to seated. Don't move your leg under its own steam. One hand to the knee, one hand to the ankle. Lift and unfold manually so that the leg is straight in front of you. Bring the other leg to meet it. Shake those knees out a little bit. And now flex the feet and point and flex and point. Circle the ankles in one direction and in the other direction. All right, side 2. Okay, all the same form notes apply. We're going to move slowly into the position wherever it is. Again, we've talked a lot about how we're not symmetrical. You may not be able to go down as far on this side, or you may be able to go down farther, okay? Just pay attention. Don't think that just because you hit a position on one side that you have to force yourself down to it on the other side, all right? Settle into wherever that position is. Remember, your muscle will let you know when it's time to stop and deepening the stretch. Your muscle will go, hey, if you keep going, something bad's gonna happen. So pay attention, acknowledge where you are, and now let's take those 4 deep breaths. And each time you exhale, try to settle a little more deeply into the stretch. Here we go. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. And 4. Slowly but surely back up to seated. Hand to the knee, hand to the ankle. Manually unfold. Do not use your leg for any of that. Bring your other leg to meet it. Shake those knees out. Flex the feet and point and flex and point. Circle the ankles in one direction and then the other direction. And now, just for a second, just because we've done a lot that's impacted our lower backs, I want you to come down, lie on your back, and I want you to bring your knees into your chest and then wrap your arms around them, pull them a little more closely, and then just let yourself rock back and forth a little bit. So we're just trying to, our lower back has, been hyperflexed a lot, or has had to work really hard to maintain its connection to the floor when we're doing those slow leg lowers. It could just use a little bit of gentle massage, I guess. So you'll probably also feel some intensity in your hip sockets. This is a little bit of a stretch for them. Let's just go back and forth. And then roll on up. And I'd say that was a good class. Awesome. It's a really great way to start our Saturday. It always is. Whether you are at the beginning of your weekend or the end of your weekend or have to head to work later, this will hopefully give you a much needed energy boost and help you feel a little more energized for whatever you want to get done today, tomorrow, at any point. And that's, one of the reasons why I love doing this class with y'all. It's just a nice way to get our day started and to remind ourselves of that wonderful connection between brain and body and strengthen it as much as we can. I think we did a good job today. I do indeed. So this was the end of our broadcast week. So we'll be back with the full usual schedule next week, starting on Tuesday at 5:45 p.m. Mountain Time with Perpetual Motion, the class where we never stop moving. And then Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. for Jump Around, our weekly cardio class. Hopefully next week Wednesday is less intense than this week Wednesday was. Hey! Then we've got Friday at 6 p.m. We do functional home fitness, where you do weight training using objects you can find around your house. And that brings us back around to Saturday morning at 9 a.m. for the weekend kickoff. So a good rung of classes. A good rung of classes and a lot of fun. And I hope you will join for some or all of them. I hope that you're planning to have a good shower and a good breakfast, because you should do both. It's important to refuel after class. Your glycogen stores take a full 24 hours to replenish, and our glycolytic energy system is the one that we are mostly using for a class like this. So you want to make sure that you have at least a little something to eat within 30 minutes of stopping class, and you want to make sure that you're fueling yourself appropriately through the rest of the day. Okay? And hydrating too. Obviously, I talk about that a lot. We are really bad at hydrating ourselves. For whatever reason, adult humans are just real great at going, I don't need to worry about that, and then wondering why they feel, tired and worn down. So yes, fueling ourselves, hydrating ourselves. Fitness Friend says, please don't forget that. And I keep feeling like I'm forgetting something, but I don't think I am. Just the rest of the end of class spiel, which is this. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of those handles are in my end cards, but they are all variations on Blanche Case Fitness. My YouTube channel, Blanche Case Fitness, is where I upload all of the VODs from these streams, so you never have to miss a class, even if you're not able to make the live cast. So definitely head over there and subscribe. If you want to help support me financially making these streams, I do have a coffee account, Blanche Case Fitness. Your donations are always very much appreciated and help me keep doing what I'm doing, which is something I feel very excited and passionate about and would like to continue. And if you want to help keep growing this channel, growing this community, then please do follow. Tell your friends, loved ones, coworkers, anyone looking for an awesome bodyweight class. I stream 4 days a week. I'm very passionate about activism, accessibility, making sure that you know that if you want to work out, then working out is for you. Full stop. There's a lot of terrible negative messaging out there. A lot of it coming from the fitness industry, sadly, that tries to convince people that they don't get to work out because X, Y, or Z totally bullshit reason. If you want to take class, you are welcome, okay? And I want you to always remember that. And if I ever give you the impression that I believe otherwise, call me out. But yeah, we have a great time here. We have a great little community. And, we're 3/4 of the way to Twitch affiliate, which is super exciting. And so come join us. Follow the channel. See where we go. A lot of fun plans for 2021. Assuming we can avoid the death of democracy in the United States. But we're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to take care of our health so that we can take care of our communities. And for that reason, I'm very glad you joined me here. And I will see you back here again on Tuesday. Have a great day.